Welcome to DataViz Daily. I'm Kevin McGinley, and today we're going to talk about a different data visualization tool. Been focused on Oracle data visualization for a while, and this week Google announced their Data Studio changes at their recent conference in San Francisco, where they opened up Data Studio as sort of a free tool. You can create a sort of unlimited number of reports and visualizations. Works very closely with some of their other Google Cloud Platform products like BigQuery, which you're going to see here in a moment, or at least a portion of. And so I wanted to highlight this tool because I've been working with it for a little bit recently, and just another tool that we have access to. Works nicely within the Google Cloud Platform, as well as handles CSV files and Google Sheets files really nicely. So we're at the home page here. I can sort of toggle between various reports that I have access to, as well as data sources. And I'm going to show you a data source that I've been working with here called retail sales. And you can see that, I've already brought this in and set it up and set all the different data types, created some calculations, set aggregation types for various measures. You can see here that it sort of differentiates between attributes and measures using green and blue. And you can see here that this actually comes from a BigQuery table that I have within a retail example data set within BigQuery, and I've created a table that I'm going to be using here as the data source for that particular, you can think of this as sort of like a subject area, or in Google Data Studio terms, they call these data sources. So just kind of coming in here, go ahead and create a report. And what this is going to do is open up a tab into the Data Studio editor. And the first thing that you're going to see here is that Data Studio is very much kind of a layout publishing style tool. It's very much a pixel perfect, kind of lay everything out exactly as you want it from a formatting standpoint. And so this differs slightly from other data visualization tools in that you really kind of start with a blank canvas, and as you'll see here, we've got a variety of different objects that we can bring in from a data visualization perspective. We have a bunch of formatting objects that we can use to sort of pretty things up and make it look very polished. And then we have a couple filter controls here, whether it's dates or specific attributes. We can set those objects on the page to allow some basic, can think of it as like dashboard prompts. We also have this paging capability here, so a report can be multiple pages. You can rename these pages to be what you want them to be, and it's a feature that allows you to create effectively like a report packet, or you can almost think of these as like PowerPoint slides. So it's as simple as if I wanted to create a time series, for example, I click that, and then I sort of drag my box to be whatever size I want that particular object to be. And you can see here in the background we've got a grid. We can turn that grid on and off, but I'll tell you that it's very handy when it comes to looking at how you lay things out and making everything align perfectly. The grid is very helpful. And you can see here right out of the gate, my data set's a little funky. It's got a bunch of gaps in the data over time, but I get a properties sort of window over here that allows me to control the object that's selected. In this case, it's a time series chart. And if I wanted to, I could come in here and say, okay, well, I've got a variety of different date based things here. I'm going to go ahead and make this based on order date. And I can come here, and I've gone ahead and created a variety of different time-based objects in that data source layer that the time series chart interprets appropriately. So for example, if I change this to year, we're going to get sort of a year-by-year view of that. If I change it to year-quarter, we're going to get a year-by-year quarter view over time. And so, same thing for year-month. It's very sort of time aware once you set up these columns as certain time columns. And then, so this is how I can sort of configure the data. If I wanted to, I could add a dimension breakdown here, which would create a series for me here. So you can see male versus female. And then I can choose something like a metric. So in this case, let's say I want to see profit dollars by male and female over time. We can, see how that looks. So it's as simple as sort of plugging in the right sort of attributes and measures in the right spaces here. I can set this to be an auto date range. I can customize it. I can include comparisons. This isn't as appropriate with the line chart, but if we were to switch this to a bar chart, we could do comparisons, as well as in some of the other visualization types. So it's really easy to add in sort of previous period, previous year. And we can add filters as well. Moving over to the style here, this is going to vary based on how, which visualization you have and how it's configured, but every, visualization has different sort of capabilities here. I can turn on and off the points. In this case, I can control the Series 1 versus Series 2 separately. I can set their colors accordingly, their line widths, if I want thicker lines versus thinner lines. All the sort of standard formatting things that you would expect. If I want to turn labels on and off, as an example, I can, show trend lines. So, there's a lot of configuration that I can do in here. And since I'm showing a series, it gives me a variety of different series options. I can control, where the legend is, if I want it on the bottom instead of the top, as an example. So all the sort of standard things that you would expect within a tool like this is sort of at your disposal. So what I can do now, I've got this, line chart. I can drag this around. I can resize it however I want. But I could also add in, for example, the ability to pick a date range. So all I do is, drag that here, and I can have this picker set to a specific date range by default. So I come in here and I say, okay, well, let's look at, we're going to choose, to do the whole data set here. We'll do January of 2005 through March 31st of 2017. Now my data doesn't go that far, but ultimately I can say, hey, that's my default. That's what I want it to be set to. But now if I untoggle this edit button right here, now this is something that I can, control and say, okay, well, I don't want this to go from that date range. I want this to go from January 1st of 2009 through, let's make it December 31st of 2013. So now my line chart will listen to that and change accordingly. And there's a lot of things that I can do with this. This is a giant font right now. I can come in here to the style, change my font type and the date range picker, and, put the size down smaller if I want. That's maybe a little bit too small. Change the size of this accordingly, make it a little bit nicer there, have it fit a more sort of tight time frame. And if I want to, I can also come in here and add another filter control. So let's say I'm going to drag that over here, and I want that to be, departments. So we're going to choose all of the different departments that we have. And in addition to this sort of being a normal picker, I can also include, a metric to show here. So if I want to show, for example, profit dollars by department, and I can have it, be in a descending value. I can choose to show only the top values if I want. Let's say I want just the top 5 instead of all of them. It'll create this all others for me. But I'm going to go ahead and have it show all of them by expanding that back out to 20. And now this becomes an object that I can use to filter the data even further. So now I've got this line chart. I can choose my date range, and I can come in here and say, okay, well, I only want to look at kitchen and bath. How has that performed over the time frame? And that's great. We've got a spike here in 2010 to 2013. let's maybe up the date range here and kind of jump into 2010. And let's go with that. So you can see here that this, oops, I forgot to choose that. This has the capability then to, if I want to say, hey, kitchen and bath and flooring, because, maybe we're putting in a new tile floor into our kitchen and bath, that will change the data accordingly. And, let's say I want to, this is great, I've got, my, sort of line chart here, but, let's add in something else. Let's add in a Geomap. So go ahead and draw that here. And it's geo-aware. There are different geo data types. You can see here that this has set to state. Let's see, let's do profit percent instead of dollars. And, again, I can choose the different sort of time dimensions that I want this to be driven by. I can choose, in this case, I've got state, city, and lat-long geo that I can do. I can pick a zoom area. This data only has United States data, but let's say I had worldwide data, I could have it, be a certain date geo range there. And let's say I don't, want to use blue. I want to use, orange as my primary color here. So, a lot of different ways that you can configure this. And then, of course, now that both of these objects are on the Data Studio panel, they'll both listen to the, corresponding filters. So in this case, if I want to go back to my 2010 to 2013 range, my map is going to change accordingly. And you can see here that the data points changed. And if I want to look at only walls and windows, again, you're going to see here, state of Washington has a high profit percentage for walls and windows. Choose exterior decor, for example, and that's popular in Arkansas, or we get high profits in Arkansas. So all of these items can talk to each other. Now you can choose to have them not. Each one is independently filterable, and you can have it sort of choose to have, for example, here we've got an auto date range. That means it's going to listen to the prompt. I can choose a custom and lock that into a specific date range, and as I change this time prompt, it'll ignore that. And again, you can build dashboard pages that ultimately go over multiple pages using this option up here, where I can add new pages. I get a whole new canvas to work with, and you can create effectively a report packet that you can walk through accordingly, which I have done with, if we come back here to reports, I've got a very simple retail sales report that I went through and built here, and this can be, you can walk through this sort of page by page and look at different things, use the different prompts across the different sides and top to choose it accordingly. So that's a quick tour of Data Studio. Hopefully that gives you a good idea of what the tool is sort of capable of from a data visualization and sort of reporting perspective on top of data sources like Google BigQuery. So for DataViz Daily, I'm Kevin McGinley. Thanks for watching.